Hey everybody, and today we're focusing on another seraphon tutorial. For this, we're going to focus on the terradons. For this, you may notice there's a skink on them, and this is but I already did a past video on skinks. You can just look forward to that video for painting riders. But also, we have a terradon. So, terradons are basically a variation. You can also have ripperdactyls in your army if you wish, but for this, we're going to do a terradon. For this, we're going to start with the skin. Naturally, we're going to use a contrast paint, terradon turquoise. So, let's get started. You may be wondering, where do we apply this paint? Basically, everywhere. So, but since this paint is kind of thick, sometimes if it develops over time, so we're going to take a little bit on our palette, quite a bit, and we're going to use water. Now, it's not recommended to use water, but the reason why I am using water is so I make up volume and make sure it's thin enough for the paint. Alright, the terradon turquoise now thinned down. We're now going to focus on something. For this, we're going to start with the wings. So, for the wings, you want to start right here, where the body segment ends right here, and just move it very, 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 very steadily. Nice broad strokes. So that way it spreads out evenly, but also, it also basically just does a smooth finish on the wings. And don't worry, you have to just apply this all over the miniature. So focus on the wings. Again, and make sure to use thin broad strokes. So for this, right here, just make sure, just a little bit right here. I'm going to focus on the biceps, and now this part of the wing. And we're going to focus on the other side of the wings, get some more contrast paint, and then thin it down again. Now, we're going to focus on this part. For this, just the same tutorial, just make sure long strokes. It's so that it evenly distributes the paint, but also have a nice generous amount. And now we're going to focus on the rest. So let me get some more contrast paint because this does the dry kind of easily. So then we're going to focus on the rest of the body. So for this, we're going to start here. Turn on the tail and then do the sides of the back right here. It's underneath the skink. Don't worry if you get any on the skink, you can just repaint the skink later. And make sure to do this the biceps right here for the creature. And then for the underside, we're going to do the same thing. So for this, all we're going to do, take a lot more contrast paint. So for the underside, it's pretty simple. It's the same thing. So for the underside, you can do a darker color if you wish, but I'm just going to use this same color. Always make sure to see where it's pooling right here. Just make sure to do that, and we're going to do the underside of the tail while we're doing this. Just poke it and somewhere where it's pooling and just move it to a different part. So take a little more water. And with the tail done, all we're going to do is focus on the belly. So for this on the other side as well. And for this, we're only focusing on the pterodon, nothing else. Don't worry, I probably will do the details and other details in a future video. So then we're going to focus on the chest. Okay, and then we're going to go back to the top side. And now we're going to focus on the neck. So for right here, focus right here, where the skink meets the feet. And just do the neck all the way around. And make sure it's not pooling anywhere. All right. Oh, hold on. Just make sure if you see it pooling like right here, just make sure you move the. Just make sure you poke the paint around. Make sure it's not pooling. See right here. Okay. Underside this here. Okay, that's the terradon, the skin base coated. All right, let me just wash off my brush because it is super soaked in this paint. All right, before I do this, let me just make sure. So, highlights. You don't really need to do much because contrast paints already highlights, but as you can see for the wings, kind of strokey, so we are going to highlight it a little bit. So, let me just find the proper color. Okay. Hold on just a second, just trying to find it. Oh, never mind. Sorry about that. So, I'm going to show off a new technique that I haven't really showed it off yet, dry brushing. So, I know I showed it off at least once or twice, but I'm going to show you something. Now, I'm going to show off a brush that I got. So, you may be wondering, this is a dual end. You may be wondering, why is this a makeup brush? Yes, it is a makeup brush. The reason why I'm using a makeup brush is because they're really good for dry brushing effects, believe it or not. So, without that done, we're going to get started. So, let me just make sure I clean out my shade brush real quick, just to make sure I get everything off. I'll leave it in there just for a couple of minutes. All right, so now we're going to start highlighting. Let me just see where I found my teal at. Okay, here it is. So, for the wings, we're going to start with a different mix. For this, we're going to use Cavalite Green. No, I don't have my Cavalite Green anymore. Cyberite Green, no, too bright. Okay, so all we're going to do is basically we're going to take this and mix in a little bit of white. So, for this, I'm going to use a different brush for mixing purposes. For this, I'm going to use this brush. We're going to take Corax White, and there we go. And the reason why I'm incorporating all this paint is so that way I can just, just to make sure it's an even color. And if you don't want to do this, don't worry. You can just get a Sotek green or Temple or Sons of Horus green and stuff like that. Make sure you mix it evenly. Okay, so there we go. You may be wondering, isn't it going to be liquid? Well, yes, that's what we want. So, but first, always dry off your brushes. Like this, I always use them on a paper towel. Okay, now, with the makeup brush, all we're going to do is going to start dry brushing. So, for this, take some paint, start right here. So, what we're going to do is going to dry brush on. This is a old one. So, watch this. We're going to we're going to take this brush and just wipe off most of the paint. The reason why I like to use makeup brushes is because this is actually a really good brush to use. So, that's it. So, what we're going to do is going to start highlighting. For this, just brush them all across the grain. So, watch this. You can kind of use circular motions, but I like to go side to side for this. And you can kind of see it compared to the left wing, it's kind of highlighted. So let me get a little more. You do have to kind of press hard because makeup brushes tend to be a little lighter. But look, we're also going to go right here. As you can see, it's sort of highlighting it in a very subtle way, which is exactly what we want. Make a little more paint. I'm going to wash it first. The reason why I'm going to wash this so none of the paint really clogs. Dry brush again. Okay, so what we're going to do is start highlighting the face. So, right here. You see, it's very subtle, but that's exactly what we want. The effect must be subtle, because if you do it too much, it will leave strokes on your paint job, which is not something you want. So, watch this. Very nice. And as you can see, it's starting to highlight and make a very nice teal color. And this, we're going to focus on the neck. So, be careful where you put this because the paint might still be wet. You see? Very nice. Top of the head. Wings, just one last time. And for this part, we're going to focus on the chest. So, for right here. The chest. Underside, legs, the chest right here, the back. All right, there we go. That's our Terradon highlighted up. You can just leave. I recommend just leaving the under wings unhighlighted because it looks like the natural shadow. But if you do, just highlight the arms. All right, let me just clean off my brush real quick, and we'll move on to the final stage. Sorry, before I moved the camera, I was just trying to draw off my brush real quick. Just a second. There we go, perfect. So, last thing we need to fill in on this is the eyes. And luckily, they just have yellow eyes like pink horrors, so we're going to paint those. So for this, I'm going to use a very fine detail brush. So, of course, you use Averland Sunset, but for I'm going to use Averland Sunset. So, let's get this started. So, let's take some Averland Sunset, and so put it a dot in the eyes. Make sure very little paint on the brush, and make sure. So if you look right here, we're going to do just the eye. There we go. And the other eye on the other side, right here. All right, there we go. The eyes are painted in. If you want to, you could add the pupils or leave them off. But for this, I'm actually going to leave the pupil. I'm actually going to paint in the pupils. So for this, all you just need is a nice little slit. And all we're going to need is a batten black. So do the same thing again. Very little paint, especially with black. So what we're going to do, paint in the slits or just to dot the pupils. So right here, just dot them. There we go. And just dot right here. Watch this. There we go. And as you can see, the eyes are painted up. So we're going to move on to the final stage, which is painting on the talons and the little arm crust right here. So for this, let's get started. For this, we're going to use a simple color. But for this, let me get it. Let me make sure I have it real quick. And yes, I do. Just making sure I got it right here. For this, we're going to use wraith bone. So you may be wondering, why use wraith bone? Well, the reason why is because we want the bones to actually be a nice color, so a nice and bright color, so that way it's not too dark. So it goes along with the idea. So for this, for the talons, all we're going to do, probably paint the ones on the chain right here where the bomb is. So for right here, paint them right here. Okay. And for these parts on the wings, just do it like this. Like right here, there's a talon. Make sure to paint the other underside as well. Same over here. And over here. There's not one on the other side because it broke off, but don't worry, you can just do this. And make sure we always paint the underside of these. All right, that's that shaded, and base coated. And now we're gonna start the final stage. So for this, all we're gonna do is just shade the bone. So for this, what we're gonna do is we're gonna apply a nice shade. But first, I gotta make sure this paint dries first. So while that's drying, I'm just gonna show you something. So I know I didn't do before and after, but if you notice when I applied the Aeldari Emeralds, it was mostly like really dark teal. But after I added the dry brush, it was very subtle, which is the key thing. And as you can see, it's very subtle, but also highlights the raised areas nice and tightly, like on the face, the neck, the body. But I recommend, let me show you the comparison. So for this is lighter, and this is the original. See, darker teal, and then when you dry brush it with the white mix that I did, you get that nice highlighted effect. So, and one more thing. If you look at the scales right here on the skink rider, you can just paint those with the Aeldari Emeralds as well. It doesn't really matter. Okay, hold on. Just making sure these are dry. Yes, they are. Okay, so now we're going to do something different. So you may be wondering, what are we going to use to shade? Well, for this, we're going to use something strange, Reikland Flesh Shade. You may be wondering, why use Reikland Flesh Shade? Well, it gives a little bit of warmth to the bone, but you could, of course, use Seraphon Sepia or Skeleton Horde. But I just want to use this just for this creature. So, for this, I'm going to take a flat brush. Take some Reikland Flesh Shade, and then put it right here. See, it's giving a nice even bone color, so that way it doesn't over-darken it, and it's also making it look cohesive with the miniature. For the other side. And for the talons, right here. Right here underneath the chain, right here. If you hit the chain, don't worry, just reboss it with silver. All right, that's our terradon done. So that concludes today's tutorial on the seraphon. I really hope you enjoyed painting your terradons up to this standard, and I really hope you enjoyed this painting tutorial. Bye bye.